Have you ever quietly wondered, is it still okay for someone my age to feel desire, to touch, to explore, to still crave pleasure? If you're in your 70s, 80s, or beyond, this video was made for you. On this channel, Buddhist Mindfulness, we don't shy away from the sacred truths of life, including the parts people are too afraid to talk about. Today, we'll walk together through the unspoken, deeply personal world of aging and sexuality, but not with shame or hesitation. With science, with self-love, and with 2,600 years of Buddhist wisdom illuminating our path. Because the truth is, sexuality doesn't expire with youth. It evolves, it softens and deepens. What once may have been fueled by urgency becomes a richer, more intentional experience, one guided by understanding rather than impulse. And yet, there are still questions, concerns, quiet fears, especially when it comes to self-pleasure in older age. That's why in today's video that we will explore 8 essential insights every older adult should understand about masturbation, drawing from medical research, psychological insight, and the teachings of the Buddha. So take a deep breath, set aside judgment, and stay with us until the end. You may walk away not only with clarity, but with a renewed connection to yourself, your body, and the sacred energy within. Let's begin. Number 1, the body's changes, aging and sexual health. With age comes change. This is nature's law. Just as the seasons shift from spring to autumn, so too does the human body evolve over time. These changes are not signs of failure or decline. They are reminders of life's natural rhythm. Understanding how aging affects sexual health can help us approach this stage of life with greater compassion, wisdom, and acceptance. From a biological standpoint, several key changes occur as we grow older. In men, testosterone levels gradually begin to decline, often starting in their 40s or 50s. This hormone plays a crucial role in maintaining libido, muscle mass, energy levels, and overall vitality. A decrease in testosterone may lead to reduced sexual desire, slower arousal, and even occasional difficulties with erections. These changes, while common, can sometimes cause distress or feelings of inadequacy, especially in cultures that tie masculinity closely to sexual performance. In women, the transition through menopause brings a dramatic drop in estrogen and progesterone. These hormonal shifts can result in vaginal dryness, thinning of the vaginal walls, and changes in libido. Additionally, women may experience mood fluctuations, sleep disturbances, and hot flashes, symptoms that collectively influence overall well-being and sexual interest. Regardless of gender, aging often leads to a decrease in blood flow, including to the genital areas. This can make arousal and orgasm more difficult or take longer to achieve. Muscle tone, especially in the pelvic floor, also tends to weaken, which may affect both continence and sexual satisfaction. The skin, including erogenous zones, loses some of its sensitivity due to changes in nerve function and collagen production. What once felt stimulating might now require more attention, patience, and emotional connection to rekindle. These physical realities are not to be feared or resisted, but embraced as part of life's natural process. As the Buddha taught, all compounded things are impermanent. This includes our bodies, our sexual function, and even our identities. We are not the same person we were in our 20s, nor should we be. Clinging to the past or holding rigid expectations about how our bodies should behave only causes suffering. Liberation begins with acceptance. From a Buddhist perspective, aging offers a unique opportunity for insight. The changes in our bodies invite us to detach from superficial definitions of pleasure and redefine intimacy. Rather than focusing solely on performance, we can shift our attention to connection, presence, and compassion. Touch becomes sacred. Eye contact becomes meaningful. Holding hands or lying close in silence becomes a form of intimacy as rich as any sexual act. This doesn't mean giving up on sexual health, it means reframing it. With mindful awareness, older adults can explore new ways of maintaining sexual well-being. This might include using lubricants, practicing pelvic floor exercises, adjusting expectations, or engaging in more emotionally attuned forms of intimacy. Communication with partners becomes more vital than ever, as honesty and vulnerability pave the way for deeper connection. These physical realities are not to be feared or resisted, but embraced as part of life's natural process. As the Buddha taught, all compounded things are impermanent. This includes our bodies, our sexual function, and even our identities. We are not the same person we were in our 20s, nor should we be. Clinging to the past or holding rigid expectations about how our bodies should behave only causes suffering. Liberation begins with acceptance. From a Buddhist perspective, aging offers a unique opportunity for insight. The changes in our bodies invite us to detach from superficial definitions of pleasure and redefine intimacy. Rather than focusing solely on performance, we can shift our attention to connection, presence, and compassion. Touch becomes sacred. Eye contact becomes meaningful. Holding hands or lying close in silence becomes a form of intimacy as rich as any sexual act. This doesn't mean giving up on sexual health, it means reframing it. With mindful awareness, older adults can explore new ways of maintaining sexual well-being. This might include using lubricants, practicing pelvic floor exercises, adjusting expectations, or engaging in more emotionally attuned forms of intimacy. Communication with partners becomes more vital than ever, as honesty and vulnerability pave the way for deeper connection. Number 2, health risks you might not consider. Masturbation by itself is not inherently harmful. In fact, for many individuals, it remains a safe and natural expression of sexuality well into later years. However, as we age, our bodies undergo various physiological changes, some of which may introduce unforeseen challenges. While masturbation is often discussed in the context of youth or middle age, it's equally important to explore how this act intersects with the realities of aging, chronic health conditions, and medication use. Let's begin by looking at what science tells us. Although masturbation generally does not strain the body the way strenuous exercise does, it still involves physical exertion, especially during arousal and orgasm. During this time, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure can temporarily rise, and your breathing becomes rapid. For most healthy individuals, this isn't a concern. But if you live with heart disease, hypertension, or other cardiovascular conditions, it's crucial to be mindful. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that sudden increases in heart rate, such as those during sexual activity, can, in rare cases, trigger cardiac events in individuals with underlying heart conditions. Though the risk is generally low, it becomes more significant for those with poorly managed or advanced heart disease. Masturbation in this context should be approached with the same caution as other moderate physical activities. If you've been told to avoid strenuous exertion, it's worth discussing sexual activity, including solo sex, with your cardiologist. Another important consideration is arthritis or joint stiffness, common among seniors. Certain positions during masturbation, particularly those involving wrist, hip, or shoulder movement, can aggravate pain or lead to strain. This is especially true when movements are repetitive or prolonged. Using supportive cushions, adjusting positions, and slowing down can greatly reduce physical discomfort and allow for a more pleasurable experience. Additionally, individuals managing diabetes may experience peripheral neuropathy, which affects nerve sensitivity, particularly in the hands and feet. This can reduce tactile pleasure or make it difficult to achieve orgasm. Meanwhile, medications such as beta blockers, antidepressants, and blood pressure drugs can lower libido or delay climax. These side effects are rarely discussed, but can deeply affect your sense of intimacy and self-esteem. If you notice changes in your sexual response, talk with your doctor. A medication adjustment or supplement may help. Lastly, one must not overlook the importance of hydration, energy levels, and overall well-being. Feelings of dizziness, shortness of breath, or fatigue after masturbation may signal an underlying issue. Don't ignore these signs. They're your body's way of communicating. Practical advice for older adults. Listen to your body. If something feels off, stop. Discomfort or pain is not normal and shouldn't be pushed through. Experiment with positioning. Using pillows or reclining in a supportive chair may help relieve joint pressure. Schedule rest. Avoid masturbating immediately after meals or when you're feeling weak or tired. Open the conversation. It might feel awkward, but talking to your physician about sexual activity is a part of whole body wellness. From a Buddhist perspective, sexuality is not inherently sinful or indulgent. It is part of human nature. However, the middle way, one of Buddhism's core teachings, urges us to walk a balanced path between overindulgence and denial. In this context, that means approaching masturbation with mindfulness, respect, and awareness of your body's needs and limitations. Instead of clinging to pleasure or suppressing it entirely, recognize the impermanence of desire. Use your body's signals, fatigue, tension, pain, as guidance, not punishment. These are simply cues pointing you toward greater balance and compassion for yourself. In the end, masturbation in older age can be a form of self love, emotional release, or physical comfort. But as with all things, it is best approached with understanding, wisdom, and care. Number three, the emotional layer: guilt, shame, and reclamation. As individuals grow older, they do not simply shed the emotional layers accumulated over a lifetime. Instead, many older adults carry within them deeply ingrained feelings of guilt and shame, particularly surrounding issues of sexuality and self-pleasure. These emotions are not new. They often trace back decades, rooted in the early messages they received from family, religious institutions, or cultural norms. For many, these messages were not just casual warnings, they were powerful moral directives. Statements like sex is only for reproduction, masturbation is sinful, or a respectable elder must be beyond such desires were internalized, often without question, during their most formative years. This early conditioning does not simply disappear with time. Even as society evolves and conversations around sex become more open and accepting, the emotional residue of these taboos remains. For some seniors, acknowledging their sexuality, let alone expressing it through self-touch, can trigger discomfort, guilt, or even a sense of spiritual conflict. The very act of feeling desire may provoke internal shame, leading to suppression, secrecy, and even self-loathing. This can be especially painful in later life when isolation, widowhood, or physical decline already challenge one's sense of identity and worth. From a Buddhist perspective, however, such suffering is seen not as an inherent part of aging or desire itself, but as a consequence of clinging, resistance, and misunderstanding. The Buddha taught that dukkha, suffering, arises when we resist what is natural or when we attach to illusions. Sexual desire, like hunger or thirst, is a natural human impulse. It becomes problematic only when it is approached with ignorance, grasping, or aversion. In this light, self-pleasure is not sinful. It is simply a form of energetic expression. To the awakened mind, what matters is how one engages with that energy. Is it mindless, compulsive, driven by fantasy and escape? Or is it rooted in mindfulness, reverence for the body, and awareness of impermanence? The difference is profound. While tanha, or craving, can indeed enslave the mind, mindful engagement with the body can become a path of liberation. When one touches oneself not to escape but to reconnect, to offer kindness, to feel alive, then even self-pleasure becomes an act of self-compassion and presence. Reclamation, in this context, is the act of unlearning shame and remembering truth. It is a return to the body, not with judgment, but with gratitude. Many elders, once given permission, internally or externally, to explore their own needs again, report feeling a renewed sense of aliveness, even joy. For some, this reclamation begins with education, understanding that there is no scientific or spiritual basis for the old shaming beliefs. For others, it begins with small acts of courage, lighting a candle, taking time with the body, practicing breath awareness while touching the skin. Reclaiming sexuality in older age is not about returning to youthful performance or fantasy. It is about redefining intimacy on one's own terms. It is about listening to the body, not as an enemy or a failing machine, but as a wise teacher. And for those following the Buddhist path, it is about recognizing that the body itself is not the problem. It is attachment and aversion that cause suffering, not the body, not pleasure, not desire. In the silence of old age, in the stillness of meditation, an elder may discover that what once brought shame can now be held with compassion, that what was hidden can now be integrated, and that in accepting the full spectrum of being human, including the sexual, one steps closer to wholeness. This is the heart of emotional healing in later life, releasing shame, reclaiming presence, and honoring the sacredness of embodied life. Number 4, loneliness and the search for comfort. As we grow older, the landscape of our social lives begins to shift. Friends move away, partners pass on, children grow up and lead lives of their own. Retirement may bring more free time, but fewer daily interactions. Gradually, what once felt like a busy, connected life can become quieter, sometimes too quiet. This creeping quietness, when left unacknowledged, may deepen into something more profound: loneliness. Loneliness isn't simply the absence of people, it's the absence of connection, of being seen, heard, or touched in a meaningful way. And in this emotional gap, many elderly individuals turn to private, solitary activities like masturbation, not just for pleasure, but for comfort. It becomes a way to soothe the ache of disconnection, to create a momentary of intimacy and control in an otherwise unpredictable world. And that's okay. Masturbation is natural. It can be healthy, even healing. It releases tension, helps with sleep, reduces anxiety, and reminds us that we are still alive, still capable of feeling. Especially for older adults who may have fewer opportunities for partnered intimacy, self pleasure can serve as a deeply personal form of self care. But here's where a gentle warning arises. When self pleasure becomes a substitute for genuine human connection rather than a complement to it, it may lead to further emotional retreat. What begins as comfort may slowly become a cocoon, warm but isolating. Modern neuroscience sheds light on this delicate balance. During orgasm, the body releases oxytocin, sometimes referred to as the bonding hormone. This neurochemical is responsible for feelings of trust, emotional closeness, and relaxation. It's the same hormone released during hugs, nurturing touch, and even while sharing heartfelt conversations. This oxytocin release can temporarily reduce feelings of loneliness, but when the experience occurs without real connection, without eye contact, voice, or shared emotion, its effects may fade quickly, leaving one craving more comfort without feeling truly satisfied. Moreover, studies have shown that excessive solitary sexual behavior, especially when used as an escape from emotional pain, can blunt one's social motivation over time. The brain, having found a shortcut to pleasure, may become less inclined to seek out the longer, sometimes more complicated path of human connection. From a Buddhist perspective, suffering often arises not from the act itself, but from our attachment to it. When we cling to a behavior or habit for emotional survival, we may be overlooking deeper, more nourishing sources of joy. True connection begins within. Before we can reach out to others authentically, we must tend to our own hearts with compassion. Solitude, when embraced mindfully, becomes a sacred space, not a prison. But we must be careful not to confuse inner peace with emotional withdrawal. Seek balance. Nurture friendships, even if only a few. Join community circles, volunteer, share tea with a neighbor, laugh at a silly TV show with someone. Be present. The little acts matter. To bring deeper meaning and emotional grounding into your moments of solitude, try a brief metta meditation, also known as loving kindness meditation, before or after self-pleasure. Here's a simple way to begin. Sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes. Breathe gently. Silently repeat phrases like, "May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I feel connected and loved." Then extend these wishes to others, friends, neighbors, even strangers. This practice isn't meant to shame your desire. It's meant to infuse it with compassion for yourself and for the world you are still a part of. Even in solitude, you are not alone. You are part of the great human fabric, still worthy of touch, love, and connection. Let your private moments of comfort be gentle reminders, not of separation, but of your capacity to feel, to love, and to belong. Number 5, communication in partnerships. As couples grow older, it becomes more common for them to avoid talking about intimacy, especially sexual intimacy. There's a silent assumption that this part of life should naturally fade with age, or that it becomes too uncomfortable, awkward, or even unnecessary to address. But this silence can build emotional distance. In truth, open communication about intimacy, particularly after the age of 60, is not only possible, it is essential for maintaining connection, mutual respect, and emotional well-being. Sexuality doesn't disappear with age, it evolves. Our bodies change, our energy levels shift, and our emotional needs deepen. These transitions call for honest and compassionate conversations with our partners. Avoiding these discussions can lead to misunderstandings, resentment, or feelings of rejection. But when couples create a safe space to talk openly, it invites trust and emotional closeness that transcends physical intimacy. Start by gently discussing the bodily changes you've noticed in yourself or your partner. For instance, decreased libido, vaginal dryness, erectile difficulties, or slower arousal times are natural experiences with aging. Rather than feeling shame, view these as opportunities to adapt together with empathy. Talking about desires and boundaries is equally important. What you wanted in your 30s may not be the same as what brings comfort or excitement in your 60s or 70s. Perhaps emotional intimacy, touch, or quiet closeness matters more now than performance or frequency. Voice these shifts without judgment. Sometimes partners discover that what they need is not always physical. It may be more about feeling desired, safe, or emotionally seen. Introducing mutual exploration can be a beautiful and healing journey. Whether it's trying new forms of touch, reading books on later life intimacy, or seeking professional guidance, couples can redefine what intimacy means for them in this chapter of life. And that redefinition, when done together, can bring a sense of playful discovery and renewed emotional connection. In Buddhism, right speech is one of the elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. It teaches us to speak with honesty, compassion, and clarity, avoiding lies, harsh words, or silence born from fear. When we apply right speech to conversations about intimacy, it transforms what could be an awkward or uncomfortable topic into an act of loving kindness. Speaking about your sexual needs with tenderness and courage is a spiritual act. It reflects not only self-awareness, but also deep respect for your partner. It says, I trust you enough to be vulnerable. This vulnerability fosters true intimacy, far beyond the physical. It is about revealing one's heart. Right speech also reminds us to listen deeply, not just to respond, but to understand. When one partner shares a fear or longing, the other's role is not to fix, dismiss, or joke, but to hold space with presence and compassion. Sometimes, the most powerful gift we can give is not a solution, but silence filled with empathy. Couples who learn to communicate openly about sex in their later years often describe feeling closer than ever, because it's not just about sex, it's about being real, being seen, and being loved for who we are in the fullness of our aging selves. So instead of avoiding the topic, approach it with gentleness and curiosity. Begin with small, honest conversations. Share memories. Laugh at the awkward moments. Embrace the pauses. In doing so, you're not just talking about intimacy, you're building it. As the Buddha taught, wise speech leads to wise relationships. And in the garden of long-term love, it's these heartfelt conversations that allow connection to blossom again and again. In Buddhism, right speech is one of the elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. It teaches us to speak with honesty, compassion, and clarity, avoiding lies, harsh words, or silence born from fear. When we apply right speech to conversations about intimacy, it transforms what could be an awkward or uncomfortable topic into an act of loving kindness. Speaking about your sexual needs with tenderness and courage is a spiritual act. It reflects not only self-awareness, but also deep respect for your partner. It says, I trust you enough to be vulnerable. This vulnerability fosters true intimacy, far beyond the physical. It is about revealing one's heart. Right speech also reminds us to listen deeply, not just to respond, but to understand. When one partner shares a fear or longing, the other's role is not to fix, dismiss, or joke, but to hold space with presence and compassion. Sometimes, the most powerful gift we can give is not a solution, but silence filled with empathy. Couples who learn to communicate openly about sex in their later years often describe feeling closer than ever. Because it's not just about sex, it's about being real, being seen, and being loved for who we are in the fullness of our aging selves. So instead of avoiding the topic, approach it with gentleness and curiosity. Begin with small, honest conversations. Share memories. Laugh at the awkward moments. Embrace the pauses. In doing so, you're not just talking about intimacy, you're building it. As the Buddha taught, wise speech leads to wise relationships. And in the garden of long-term love, it's these heartfelt conversations that allow connection to blossom again and again. Mindful touch is about listening with your hands. It's about being aware of the texture of skin, the rhythm of breath, and the warmth shared in silence. Even holding hands or stroking the back can become powerful rituals of connection when done with care and presence. In Buddhist teachings, the sacred can be found in the ordinary. We can transform physical connection into a sacred experience by engaging the senses with intention. Before physical intimacy, consider bathing together. This simple act cleanses not only the body, but also the energy shared between partners. Light a stick of incense or burn essential oils. Choose calming aromas like sandalwood, lavender, or jasmine to create a tranquil environment. Soft chanting or instrumental music in the background can quiet the mind and invite stillness. Let these rituals signal that this time is different from the rest of the day. It is sacred, not rushed. Prepare the space as you would for a meditation or prayer. In fact, intimacy itself can become a form of meditation when done with presence. From a Buddhist perspective, sexuality isn't merely a physical act. It can be an opportunity for unification of body, breath, and awareness. When partners engage in intimacy with mindfulness, they practice being fully present. Every inhalation, every movement becomes part of a shared meditation. There is no room for distraction, judgment, or comparison. Only awareness, compassion, and gratitude. In this way, intimacy becomes more than desire. It becomes a path to interbeing, a deep recognition that we are not separate, that through touch, breath, and loving attention, we return to a sense of wholeness. Number 7, seek expert guidance. In times of uncertainty, fear, or embarrassment, seeking expert guidance can feel intimidating. But when it comes to your health, especially intimate or age-related concerns, it is not only wise, but vital. Many older adults silently suffer with issues like incontinence, libido changes, or discomfort, mistakenly believing these are normal parts of aging they must endure. In truth, they are often treatable. By consulting with qualified professionals, you open the door to clarity, empowerment, and healing. Doctors are not just diagnosticians, they are educators. When you sit down with a trusted physician or specialist, you're not just being treated, you're being informed. You may carry fears born from outdated ideas or myths passed down from older generations. A simple consultation can dispel those misconceptions, replacing fear with facts. You'll discover you're not alone. Your experiences, however personal, are often shared by many others, and there are paths forward. Doctor's tip: one hormone therapy might help. As hormone levels shift with age, many seniors, both men and women, experience changes in mood, energy, libido, and urinary control. Hormone replacement therapy, HRT, when supervised by a professional, can restore a sense of balance. It is not for everyone, and there are risks, but for many, it brings renewed vitality and improved quality of life. 2, pelvic floor therapy can restore control. Pelvic floor therapy isn't just for women after childbirth. As we age, the muscles that support our bladder and bowel can weaken, leading to leakage or urgency. A physical therapist specializing in pelvic health can teach exercises to rebuild strength and control, helping you regain dignity and confidence in your daily life. 3, address side effects of medication. Some medications, especially those taken for blood pressure, anxiety, or depression, can quietly cause side effects like fatigue, dizziness, or sexual dysfunction. Often, patients don't report these issues, assuming they're part of aging. But a medication review may reveal opportunities to switch to better tolerated alternatives, or to add simple remedies that ease the side effects. Taking action begins with asking a single question: is there anything I can do about this? Can open the floodgates to meaningful solutions. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha reminds us, the wise seek the company of the learned, just as the thirsty seek water. Seeking expert guidance is not a weakness. It is an act of inner strength and clarity. In Buddhism, one of the greatest causes of suffering is ignorance, avijja, not just a lack of information, but a clinging to false views. To overcome ignorance, we are encouraged to seek right knowledge, samadhi, the first step on the Noble Eightfold Path. Whether you are visiting a doctor, a therapist, or a spiritual teacher, the pursuit of wisdom begins with humility. Asking questions, opening your heart to learning, and being willing to receive help, these are sacred acts. They honor your body, your mind, and your journey. It is said that a wise person does not fear correction. They welcome it like rain on dry soil. So too, when we seek expert guidance, we nourish the ground of our well-being. We loosen the chains of outdated beliefs, and we step into a clearer, more liberated life. Remember, ignorance is not bliss, it is bondage. Knowledge, when applied with compassion and courage, becomes your path to freedom. Number 8, embrace sexuality without shame. The final, and perhaps most overlooked lesson in the journey of aging gracefully is this: sexuality does not have an expiration date. For too long, society has whispered the idea that intimacy, desire, or even sensuality should be locked away after a certain age. But this couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, embracing one's sexuality in the later stages of life can be a powerful act of self affirmation and spiritual freedom. When we allow ourselves to engage in sensual or sexual experiences alone or with a partner, we unlock a host of physical benefits that support our well being. Improved sleep. Studies have shown that sexual activity triggers the release of oxytocin and prolactin, hormones that promote restful sleep and relaxation. In a time when many seniors struggle with insomnia or restless nights, a little intimacy may be the most natural remedy of all. Reduced anxiety. Sexual release helps reduce cortisol levels, lowering stress and improving overall mood. It becomes a calming practice, an anchor of peace amid life's storms. Boosted immune function. There is evidence that healthy sexual activity boosts the immune system, improving the body's ability to fight off illness, especially important as the immune system gradually slows with age. But even more powerful than the physical rewards are the emotional and psychological gains that arise when we reclaim this part of ourselves. Sexual expression is not just about pleasure, it's about power, self respect, and connection. Reclaiming agency over your body. As we age, we often feel like our bodies are slipping beyond our control. Slower movements, more aches and wrinkles where there was once smooth skin. But reconnecting with your sensuality allows you to reclaim ownership. It's your body, and it's still capable of joy, intimacy, and delight. Honoring lifelong vitality. Aging does not mean we become invisible or irrelevant. Our vitality, though quieter, still pulses beneath the surface. When we embrace our sexuality, we are saying to ourselves, I am still here, I am still alive. Healing the shame. Many seniors carry the residue of generational taboos around sex. Some were raised to believe that sexual expression was sinful or shameful, but in truth, there is no shame in the sacred act of touch, love, and presence, especially when done mindfully and with reverence. In Buddhism, the body is not something to be denied. It is a vessel of learning and transformation. To treat your body with kindness and care is to practice mindfulness, and to explore pleasure without clinging, without craving, but with presence and gentleness is a form of compassionate awareness. Sexuality, when rooted in self-awareness, becomes a spiritual act, not indulgence, but remembrance of aliveness. It reminds you that you are not just surviving, you are living. You are not just a shell of your younger self, you are evolving into a deeper version of your being. Whether through intimate touch, shared closeness, or even simple self-care and body appreciation, the message is the same. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of pleasure. You are worthy of feeling alive. In the quiet of night, when the world has grown still and your thoughts turn inward, ask yourself this: can I honor my body as it is now? Not for how it used to be, but for what it continues to carry, feel, and know. Let your answer be a soft, sacred yes, because in that yes lies not only your healing, but your liberation. Aging is not a curse, it's a continuation of life's sacred dance. Your body may change, but your worth never diminishes. Your longing for connection, for intimacy, for tenderness is not something to hide. It is something to embrace. Desire does not expire with age. It evolves, deepens, and becomes more soulful. Your pleasure is not shameful. It is sacred. It is a way to connect with yourself and with others on a profound spiritual level. It is a form of healing, of remembering who you are at your core. Let this be the generation that reclaims aging, not as a loss, but as a powerful unfolding. Let's age with awareness, with courage to speak our truth, and with joy in every wrinkle that tells a story. If this video touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and comment below. What spoke to your soul? What challenged your beliefs? What are you choosing to reclaim today? Together, let us build a compassionate space where aging is honored, desire is welcomed, and dignity is never compromised. With warmth, presence, and gentle wisdom, Buddhist mindfulness.